I am going to start off with introducing myself first, just so that you understand who you're dealing with. That makes it a bit easier sometimes. So this is me. I'm Stacey Baker, and that's my amazing husband, Talmadge. Can you see that, Elder Leighton? Does that work okay?
Yes, I can.
Sorry. Yep, cool. All right.
There.
Just wanted to double check.
With a halo over the wife's head.
So, yeah, there you go. So this is my husband, Talmadge. I was an Armstrong before we got married, and he was a Skirkovich, actually. And then a few years into our marriage, we decided to change our last name to Baker, which is his the bloodline that his family goes along. And so then we could carry that name through into the generations that are still to come. So hence we are now Bakers. Okay, so we have 5 kids, and they range from 7 as the oldest, right down to 10 months as the youngest. And my second oldest son, Taika, this is him here, is diagnosed autistic. So you'll understand why that's important later on. I am a photographer by trade. And what that pretty much means is that I see the world visually. So, you know how in movies, you kind of have that scene where you're moving along and then it goes click, and then it kind of pauses and shows it as a picture. Well, that's kind of how I see things. I'll be driving along and I'll see like a beautiful tree or something, and I'm like, man, that's beautiful. And it'll literally go click in my mind as I'm driving past it. So yeah, I see things visually. I studied at uni, and I got my degree in design with a majoring in photography, and that just kind of cemented it for me even more, how much I kind of understand and learn things visually and things like that. So I work with a lot of that through this workshop. Okay, so this is my family. We're taking it back old school 90s. Mum and dad is Moses and Vanessa. I was raised in the gospel, and I have 4 brothers, 2 older and 2 younger, and they're your typical rough and tumble brothers. They are the type that, you know, I couldn't get past them in the hallway without getting tackled, that kind of a thing. And the way that I see it is that it kind of built up a resilience, I guess you could say, for me. So I kind of got a bit of a thick skin, a toughness, and it makes me also, I kind of talk very real talk. So yeah, just in case you kind of, I'm explaining something, you're like, oh, that's where it kind of comes from. Now, the way that I learned about signature strengths was I did a course called the Now and Next course for my son, Taika. Here in Hamilton, we have an amazing place called the Mackenzie Centre that helps all kids with any kind of developmental delays or special needs. And they offer a whole lot of different services. And one of the ones that they do is workshops. And this is one of the workshops that they provided. It's called Now and Next. It was orchestrated by 2 mums who have sons that are special needs and that are a lot older now. And what they thought was, they realized, man, imagine if we could know now what we knew back, if we could know back then what we know now, that would be so awesome. And so they organized this program to sort of help with that. And the slogan that I sort of took away from it was that they taught you how to be the CEO of your child. And I loved that. I loved how awesome that was. And they gave you tools that helped you in that journey. And one of those tools was signature strengths. Dr. Anik Jansen, this is her here, is one of those mums that founded the program. She's also a psychologist, and she also uses the Now and Next course as a research paper because she studies in a field of positive psychology. And I'll explain that a little bit later on. Okay, so signature strengths. Signature strengths are the core character strengths that make up who you are. Let me backtrack a bit and give you a bit of background information so that you have an understanding of what that means. So 2 psychologists, Dr. Christopher Peterson and Dr. Martin Seligman, realized that in the field of psychology, there was a lot of things were dealing with what was going wrong, and dealing with what goes wrong doesn't necessarily make things right. And so they realized there was a lot a lot of looking at what was going wrong instead of what could go right and what could make you happier. Dr. Seligman quoted and said, sorry, let me just read it out so that it's actually, he says, the mission I want psychology to have, in addition to curing the mentally ill, in addition to making miserable people less miserable, is to actually make people happy. And so that's what they decided to do. They got a team together of 50 social scientists, and they did a ton of research. They looked into cultures, into history, they looked into religion, they looked all over the world, all through time, trying to understand what is it that gives you a happier life. And what they realized from that was that, so what before that, I can't remember if I said. So they, from all their research, they founded this field of positive psychology. And what they did was, as they did their research and they found things, they realized that there were actually, the thing that gave you a happier life was virtue, or specifically virtuous principles. Now, I love that. I thought that was pretty cool. It's very gospel truth related. And so that sat really well with me as I was learning this. They said, so what they did was, being typical scientists, they studied this out and they realized that there was actually 6 core virtues that that gave you a happy life. And those are wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. Being typical scientists, they decided to break those down into categories, and they decided to organize them into different areas and things. And from that, they came up with the 24 character strengths. This is them here. And this is them. And what they realized was that these character strengths are the virtues in action. Now, what you're seeing here in front of you is an interpretation of the 24 character strengths from the website called the Virtues in Action website. Now, this is an awesome website. That what they did was they wanted to collect as much research and information as they could about all of this stuff. And so they've made it online possible for everyone. There they have an area where you can take different tests and to be able to figure out what your character strengths are in one order or another. Everyone has these 24 character strengths in varying degrees. Some obviously in different and more strengths more than others. Now, your signature strengths are your top 5 to 8 character strengths. So they are, as we said before, they're what make up who you are essentially. They are elements of your personality that allow us to improve ourselves without diminishing others. So I think that's pretty cool. As you can imagine, I was lapping this stuff up. This is right up my alley. So when I learned about this stuff in Now and Next, I really loved it. And then I came back and I decided that I was going to look into it a lot further. And I studied a whole lot more on the topic. And then Dr. Anik Jansen also helped to mentor me through a lot of this, to sort of help me figure out, understand it a lot more, and then figure out how I can use this in my life. Okay, so some of the things that, what can knowing my signature strengths do for me? It can do things like, it can help you handle life's challenges, can help you buffer against, manage, and overcome problems. It can empower you majorly, because understand that this isn't just someone telling you what you are. This is you. This is essentially you. So this is a core part of who you are. And so I found myself that I resonated with them all. It also does things like improve self-confidence. It gives you more assertiveness. It helps your belief in your ability to handle whatever life has to throw at you. It also alleviates depression, anxiety, and stress. It enhances health and overall well-being. This is all really good stuff, right? It gives you a fuller and happier life. If you continue to use your strengths, it will help to improve and strengthen relationships. It will help maintain social support. It'll help you to build on successes. And in turn, it increases your confidence in your strengths. And then it becomes a cycle. Increasing your confidence in your strengths helps you to build on successes, which helps you to increase your confidence and strengths, which helps to build on successes, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I can give you an example from my life. I have my son Taika was going through this one stage when he was getting dropped off at kidney, where for 3 weeks he would chuck a major fit every single morning of drop off. We'd get there, he'd be perfectly fine. I'd go, okay, son, let's go, jump out of the car. And then he'd start to get a bit, and then he'd get out and then and by the time I'd open the gate and get him in the door, he was kicking and screaming and going crazy. And I'd be walking in there and I'd be pulling him along, and I'd go, good morning. And the teachers would go, oh, good morning. Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. Come on, son, let's go. And I'm pulling him along, and he's literally kicking and screaming the whole way through. And this happened for 3 weeks on and off. Now, the thing that I recognized was that the problem wasn't kindy. He loved kindy. It wasn't the fact that he was going to kindy and that was upsetting him. What I realized quite quickly was that he realized that he had the opportunity to influence the way things went in his life by the way that he reacted. And so he realized that he had choices, because before that, he never did. He was always just he'd do according to whatever I said he would do. If you were compliant, that's awesome. But I recognized here that that's what this was that he was taking assertiveness in his life. And I appreciated that. That was really cool. And so that was, that was the understanding that was it made it a lot easier to get through. Now, I was talking to one of the kindy teachers, and I was telling her about signature strengths that I was learning at the time. And she said to me, she said, oh, okay, what is your signature strengths that you're using? Because one of them must be patience. And I said, no, not at all. I am not a patient person. And she went, are you sure? Because what is it that you're using at this time then? Because something's working. And it wasn't until she specifically asked me that I had to stop and I had to think. And I thought, okay, no, hold on a sec. What is it that I'm using here? Because she's right. While this is hard, I'm still able to get through this. And there's something that I'm tapping into here that's helping me to do that. One of my signature strengths is appreciation of beauty. And the way that reads is, just quickly, you notice and appreciate beauty and excellence in all domains of life, from nature to art, to mathematics, to science, to everyday experiences. So I could appreciate what it was that he was going through, that he was finding himself in this, and he was gaining his own voice. I could appreciate that. The other signature strength that I was using in this was gratitude. Gratitude reads, being thankful for the good things that happen, you always take the time to express thanks. So that was huge, understanding that. Once I recognized that's actually what is helping me through this, this is me helping me through this issue that I've got going on, it was empowering massively. It helped me realize that I had things that I could use, that I could tap into, that could help me through situations like this. What I want you to start doing is just start thinking. Now, remember, we're talking about positive psychology here, okay? So just start thinking about some of the things that you may be good at. Start thinking positively. One of the thought processes in positive psychology is that by concentrating on the positive, it sets off endorphins in your body, which helps you to feel good, which then in turn continues to help you to feel good and to bring about that positive feeling. So we're focusing on positives, all right? Now, this is interesting stuff. Dr. Seligman recognized that there were 3 types of a happy life. He said, if it is happiness that you're looking for in your life, from his research, they realized that there were 3 different types of a happy life that you could have. One of them is the pleasant life, he called it. And he describes this as having sort of like your needs and wants fulfilled. It also describes things like meditation and mindfulness, sort of giving you that pleasant feel that brings about happiness. The second one that he talked about was a life of engagement. Now, in a life of engagement, he describes that as having flow in your life. Flow to him is when you are so engaged in something that you have completely lost, you're completely lost in it. Let me help you understand that. So, for example, have you ever had a situation where you've been doing something, a task or something, and you're enjoying it so much that it's almost like kind of time stands still, that you kind of don't recognize things going through, and it may take a whole lot of time, but you're getting energized and refueled through that whole entire time period because you're enjoying what it is you do. So this is what he describes as flow. I'll give you an example from my life. While I'm shooting, I love shooting that part of photography. It fuels me big time. I hate the editing side of it. Anyone who knows me knows that. And I quite often can complain about it and things like that. But when I'm shooting, I am in the zone. I have shot weddings at 7 to 8 months pregnant. Sometimes just before I'm going to shoot, I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm so sore. I've had hardly any sleep. And then as soon as I get that camera in my hand and I'm out there, I'm like, right, let's go. And everything goes out the window. And I can be doing things like climbing over rocks. I can be hanging out of trees. I can be lying on train tracks, for example, and I don't feel a thing. And everyone's looking at me and they're like, are you okay? Because remember, I've got this huge belly in front of me and I'm like, yeah, no, this is great. This is great. And I'm shooting and shooting and shooting. I don't feel a thing. Afterwards, I definitely feel it. I definitely feel the soreness afterwards. But during that time period, I don't feel it. I am in that zone. So that's what he's talking about when he talks about a life, about flow and having a life of engagement, is having that flow in your life. Now, the third type of a happy life he talks about is the meaningful life. He says that from his research, that the pleasant life is not lasting. It's fleeting. It doesn't last for very long, and you have to continually refuel that. But he said that from his research, a life of engagement and a meaningful life is long lasting. Now, he said, if you want a life of engagement, use your signature strengths in your day-to-day life. And he said, if you want a meaningful life, use your signature strengths in service to others. Now, again, for me, that's like gospel truth. I love that stuff. I really love how the world seems to catch up to some of these gospel truths that we've already known and had for so long. And yet, with the research base behind it, it kind of helps to cement it for us too. So, signature strengths. This is an example here of the 24 character strengths. This is the format that I received it in the Now and Next course. And I really, really love this format because for me, just visually, again, I can look at it, I can see the word, for example, perseverance, and I can go, what does that even mean? And then I look at the picture and I get a lot more of an understanding. And then I look at the caption underneath and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Now, just for your understanding, I can't remember if I said before, there is a test on that website, the VIA character website. It's viacharacter.org. And there's a test that you can take that can help you understand what your 24 character strengths are in order. So remembering that your signature strengths are your top 5 to 8 of those. And it takes about 10 minutes So when you get the chance, take your time if you want to, and do the test and sort of see, you can do that to figure out what your 24 character strengths, or what your signature strengths are, sorry. Or one of the ways that I learned when I was first taught this was to take a look at the sheet yourself and to figure out yourself what it is that you feel that these are. Now, remembering that these are your core selves. This is who you are as a person. When I did it in the course, me and my husband did the course together, and I was struggling because they said, okay, start off by kind of going yes, no, and maybe column. And I had a couple in the no, I had a couple in the yes, and I had a lot in the maybe. And I was like, I don't know. My husband rolled his eyes at me, as he does, and he went, here, and he switched papers. So he said, you do mine and I'll do yours. And I found that really helpful, because what ended up happening was, when he gave it back to me, I kind of looked and I went, oh yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, that probably is one of mine. Or, oh, I know what you're saying, that is a strength, but that I wouldn't say that that's one of my signature strengths. Things like that. So possibly talking to someone who you trust, that knows you well, that could also help you to figure out what your signature strengths are. If you do the test online, just as a heads up, this version here, they've worded a couple of the words a little bit differently. For example, the open-mindedness is also known as judgment in online. Okay, so just in case you kind of go, wait, but I thought I was open-mindedness, but I don't see that anywhere on this list from my test. So they also call it judgment. And appreciation on this one is also known as appreciation of beauty. Okay. So if you get the chance, what I suggest is take a screenshot of this and take it home, take a look at it later on, and sit down and read through them all and try and figure out what it is that you think that your top 5 to 8 are. A lot of people struggle to pull out what their strengths are. It's quite a hard thing to do for us sometimes. I understand that. Normally in person, we would have been able to do a few exercises to sort of help to warm you up to that. But in this instance, online, there's a few things that I can give you that can help you to have a thought process so that you can try and figure out what yours are. So these are some of them here. Understand that a strength is something that strengthens you. A weakness is something that weakens you. Okay. One of the suggestions is make a list, loved it or loathed it. And for a week, list all the tasks that you have throughout your day in one of the columns. The loved it list is the place to begin to identify your strengths. Another thing you can do is childhood memories. What do you remember doing as a child that you still do now, but most likely do much better? Or energy, what activities give you an energetic buzz when you're doing them? Now, that's a really important one because, like I said before, using your signature strengths, especially when you're able to use them in a way that creates that flow or gets you in that zone, it will energize you. And that's one of the big trigger points that can help you understand what one of your strengths are. I'll give you an example of a friend of mine. She was working for the family business, and she was in charge of the accounts and administration. She said to me, I'm doing it because I'm good at it, but I don't like it. Now, a lot of people would consider that a strength because she's good at it. But in this instance, it's not, because she didn't like it, which meant that it didn't energize her. Okay, so you've got to think about things that energize you. Another quick example is I've got a cousin who was intellectually, he was onto it. Quite a few friends at school would tell me about how he used to really rack them off because he would be asleep in class, and yet in tests and assignments he'd get all A's. And so typically aunties in the family were like, right, you're going to be a doctor. And so they said, let's go, send you off to doctor school. And he started at medical school. He did 1 year. I don't even know if he lasted the year actually. And he realized pretty quickly that he hated it. He definitely had the intellects and the smarts to be able to be in there, but it wasn't something that energized him at all. Okay, so we're looking at something that energizes you, something that speaks to who you are. Another thing that they suggest to say is authenticity. When do you feel most like the real you? Or ease, which activities come naturally to you? One of the other suggestions is attention. See where naturally you pay attention. You're most likely to focus on the things that play to your strengths. Rapid learning, what are things that you have picked up quickly, learning them almost effortlessly. And to-do lists. This is a cool one. This speaks to me. Notice the things that never make it on your to-do list. The things that always seem to get done often reveal an underlying strength that means we never need to be asked twice. I'll give you a really quick example of that. My kids were watching way too much TV at one stage, and I decided I needed to cut that back. So I jumped on Pinterest, which was my best friend at the time, and I tried to figure out what can I do to help that. And I found these things called busy bags, and what they are is they're tiny, kind of like heaps of different little activity packs with things that you can get from like the $2 shop that help to sort of keep them entertained and occupied and teach them things. Things like, like a bag of pom-poms with some tweezers and being able to put them into different containers. Things like paddle pop sticks with pictures on them that you can use as a puzzle pieces, things like that. So I started thriving off this. I was like, this is awesome. And what I realized I started doing was each day on my list, I'd have things like cleaning the house and folding the laundry, go to the $2 shop and get some more stuff for the busy bags. And I go, oh, I better do that first because and that seemed to be the thing that took up all my time. And that's because it took to my strength of creativity. Now, hold on a sec. I'll just make sure that I'm keeping to my timing. Okay, so Dr. Seligman himself has given us a list of things that will be able to help us in this instance. He says, to identify which of the strengths particularly represent your authentic self, Seligman recommends considering if one or more of the following statements apply. A sense of ownership or authenticity, as in this is the real me, that's what we explained before. A feeling of excitement when displaying it, particularly at first. A rapid learning curve as the strength is first practiced. Continuous learning of new ways to enact the strength. A sense of yearning to find ways to use it. A feeling of inevitability in using the strength, as in try and stop me. Invigoration rather than exhaustion while using the strength. The creation and pursuit of personal projects that revolve around it, hence my busy bags. And bringing something that brings you joy, zest, enthusiasm, even ecstasy when you're using it. So these are all types of things that you can think about as you're looking through this list and trying to figure out what is it that what are my signature strengths? Sorry, the next thing that we're going to look at is how can I use my signature strengths? Now, Dr. Jansen, Dr. Anik Jansen, who was that founder of the Now and Next program that helped to mentor me through this, originally when Dad was organising the New Zealand Education Weeks last year, he came to me and he said, look, we're looking for presenters. Do you have anyone in mind that could help to teach things like things that will help to empower you, things that will help with your mental and emotional well-being and things like that? And I said, oh man, that's the signature strength stuff I'm learning right now. It's right up that alley. And he said, awesome. Well, do you think you could present on that? And I said, oh, you might want to get Dr. Anik Jansen. She's the one who's taught me, and she really knows more about it than I do. So he said, okay. So he tried to get hold of her. She was unavailable at the time, but what she said was, I can help mentor Stacey through some of this and she could present it. And so that's what she did. So we sat down and she said to me, all right, now one of the most important things about signature strengths is that once you realize what yours are, using them in your like the biggest thing that you can do is to use them in your day-to-day life to help you through different problems that you've got. And I'm like, oh, cool, okay. And she says, so what are some of your problems? Talk to me, let's hear them. So I said to her, oh, my kids, they drive me insane. I said, and my house is always messy and it infuriates me and I can't get on top of it. And she said, all right, okay, well, let's take a look at that. She said, well, how about, what if you used your strength and creativity? you know, with your photography and things. She said, what about this? What if you take a photo of a corner of your house that looks tidy at the time and put it up on your fridge, and then that way every time you get really angry or frustrated about the fact that your house isn't in order, you can look at that picture and you can go, no, one time it was in order. It has been in order before, it will be in order again at some stage. This is what it looks like, and sort of run off those feelings. Remember, we're talking about positive psychology here, and we're talking about those positive influences in your mind that help to set off those endorphins. So that was her mindset behind it. And I kind of was like, yeah, okay. But it still didn't quite sit well with me. When I was at uni, we were taught to be gallery artists. And what that really means is that we were taught to have a deeper meaning to our images. So just taking a picture face value of something and sort of just looking at for its face value, it wasn't quite sitting with me. So I thought about it, and then I realized actually what I really need, especially in my for my kids, is I need to be reminded how much they bring me joy. And now I know those mums who are out there can probably relate well with me in that. Sometimes I forget that and I get caught up in the day-to-day life and craziness of it all. But I realized that's what I really needed. And so what I decided to do was I decided to take a picture of each of the kids individually at a time when you could see that spark in their eyes, where you could see the joy in their faces. And I decided that I was going to frame them and I was going to put them up in my lounge. So this is them here. Now, we've renovated since then, so they've had to come off the wall, and number 5 hasn't been re-added in yet, but that's a work in progress. But so what I did was I did them individually, firstly because, you know, sometimes I may need reminding about one specific kid a little bit more than another at different stages. So I made them individual. I framed them because framing them gives it importance. And I put them up specifically in a place that I knew that I would see them all the time. I made them large so that I couldn't miss it, so that it was almost like you are going to look at me. And it worked. It worked really well. That is one example of a way that you can use one of your signature strengths to help you through some of the issues that you may be facing. Because what they say is, in positive psychology, while it is a lot of, you know, talking positively and thinking positively, that doesn't necessarily mean that they eliminate struggles. They recognize that struggles are there, and they say, don't think that, like, embrace the struggles. Instead, embrace the struggles and use the strengths to build them up. Now that they said, struggling is what helps you progress. And that's exactly what the gospel teaches us. So that's why they say, instead of trying to eliminate struggles, embrace them. Embrace the struggles, understanding that you're going to progress from this, and use the strengths to build them up. Now that I love, absolutely love. There is another example that I can give you from the website. Dr. Seligman went into a uni and was talking to some of the students there. And one of the students, he was saying to them, you know, like, what's some of the things that you're struggling with? One of the students said he rides his bike to uni. It's quite a long trip, and one of the quickest ways for him to get there is to ride through a really rough part of town, and it freaks him out. It really unsettles him. He doesn't like it at all. So he said, okay, well, let's figure this out here. Let's see what we can do. He said, what's one of your strengths? One of his strengths was humor. And so what he decided to do was he decided that every time that he was riding through that part of town that he didn't like, that he was going to be that Olympic cyclist riding for the gold medal. And that was going to be his thought process in his head. And what he soon found was that he was getting through that part of town a whole lot quicker. And he was getting through it without any problems. And what he started doing not too long after that was that he started riding to school the longer way because he started enjoying the trip a whole lot more. So see what I mean? Looking in your life, figuring out what are some of the struggles that you may have, looking at your signature strengths and figuring out how you can use one of those strengths to help you through the struggle that you may be going through. one of the biggest ways that they say to be able to help you in your life, to bring you more happiness, is he says, try and use your signature strengths in a new way each day. Find one of your signature strengths each day, try and find a new way to be able to use it. And that will help to strengthen that strength, and it will help to lift you up. It'll empower you. It'll do all those amazing things that we listed earlier. And it'll help you through some of the things that you need to. One of my suggestions that I give you is, once you figure out what your signature strengths are, put them up somewhere where you can see them all the time. I had mine next to my bed. They have been ripped down since then by kids and things like that. I need to put them back up. But this is, so for example, the one on the left is the one that I did in the Now and Next course, where I figured out what I thought they were, my signature strengths. And then the one on the right is what you will get if you do the test online on the viacharacter.org website. And this is the format that they give it to you in. Now, what I realized was, I'm really grateful that I did both, because I kind of realized I was actually a mixture of the two. There was some that I got right in that Now and Next, and there was some that the test got right that I didn't quite cover in the Now and Next course. And so combining those two together helped me to really realize and cement what my top signature strengths were. And putting them next to my bed was powerful. What I realized was, it was something where I could see it every morning when I woke up. It was something that I saw every night when I went to bed. And just knowing alone that what I was looking at was a strength of mine that I had was empowering. And then not only that, I realized really quickly that these are tools that I have that I can help myself with every day. And that in itself gave me the confidence to be more assertive in the way that I use them. Now, quite often people ask me about my children and signature strengths, and have I done it with them? Have I looked at them? Really quickly, I haven't specifically, just because my kids are quite young. They do have a test on that website that you can do from kids age 8 and up. There's a lot of research on youth and understanding their signature strengths and helping them through that. The cool thing about that website is they have all their research on there. It's open to the public so that they can continue to gather more and more, and so that you can also see how this is helping in different ways. So you'll need to log on if you do the test online, just because it's part of their research base. So that it asks you for your email and your password and things like that. But the cool thing is, I've gone back and I've done the test a couple of times over the past couple of years, and it's come up slightly different each time, but it's helped me to sort of really cement some of the ones that I definitely know are my signature strengths, and some of the ones that I could possibly focus on at that time. Now, when it comes to your children, these are some of the suggestions that you could do that could help in that kind of a sense, if that's what you're looking at. You can do things like why you'd want to look at your children's signature strengths is because it cultivates your appreciation for them and their unique gifts of character. It's putting on your strengths lens enables you to hunt for the good stuff and avoid pervasive, permanent thinking about problem areas. It keeps you optimistic. Your children will begin to develop an identity or a sense of ownership around the strength, as in, this is who I am, and this is what makes me unique and special, which I think is so important in this day and age. A lot of our kids lose sight of who they are. A lot of us do. And this signature strength is one of the ways that it's going to help you to understand who you are and give you back your sense of identity. With your kids, you will model and understand that everyone has potential and everyone possesses everyone possesses some inherent goodness. It'll also, your children's self-efficiency will increase when you instill the belief that they are competent, confident, and capable of accomplishing their goals. And using strengths creates positive emotions in you and your child, which can help with future resources for challenging situations. How you can, very quickly. Activities that can cultivate their strengths are things like, where is it gone? Here we go. How? Watch them play. The best way to identify strengths in 2 or 3-year-olds is to observe carefully when they're playing with others. Listen and do strength spotting. Reflect on their peak experiences. Were there times where you could recall that your children were at their best or in flow? When or where does each child shine? Ask your children's teachers or caregivers questions like, what are their strengths and how would you describe them? That can help a lot. I've done that before with my kids. Expose your children to a wide range of activities such as dance, music, art, literature, sports, and nature, and not just ones you're prone to enjoy. See if there are any elements within these activities that really light a spark. Imagine yourself giving a parent report. What would your answers be if you were asked to fill out questionnaires that asked questions about your children, such as name your child's strengths or what does your child do really well? Listen to their stories. Children give us clues about the way that they perceive the world and the stories that they tell us. Create the space for conversation and storytelling at dinner time or in the car or at bedtime. Listen for strengths and action. Pick up on their clues when they're sharing their day with you and point out the strengths that you hear in their words. One of the things that positive psychology says is that by pointing out a strength, it amplifies it. So just knowing what your strength alone is, or by pointing out to your kids what their strength alone is, amplifies it instantly, or it already gives it the chance for it to shine. Activities that you can cultivate their strengths is things like have a strengths dinner. Let's pretend that one of your child's top strengths is gratitude. Celebrate his or her strengths in one night by writing a compliment card about how he or she showed gratitude that week and leave it at his or her place setting. Another idea is to practice strength spotting. Have discussions about how your child's strengths show up in daily life. Another one is, sorry, let me just try and move my screen. Help your children use their strengths in new ways. Make a list with each child of all activities he or she can engage in during any given week that would activate top strengths. Keep the list visible and encourage them to try a new one each day. Collect comments about each other's strengths. Put a white tablecloth on the dinner table and ask everyone in the family to write on it with a fabric marker. That's a cool idea. Create situation cards and ask what would you do if. There is also a website that helps to give you a really good understanding of how you could work with your children and signature strengths. It's called AuthenticHappiness.sas, right there in front there. Yeah. In closing, honestly, understanding what your strengths are is massive. It'll help you in so many different ways. It'll empower you, it'll empower those around you, and then in knowing what yours are and being able to share them with others or being able to help others learn theirs and share theirs will give you that meaningful and empowered life. And I know that these are true, and I say these in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.